Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruber. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I am Kathy Gruber, and we are so excited to welcome back one of our favorite guests who's got some new version of her book, and we're going to talk about that. We've got Dr. Pat with us today, everybody. Yay, Dr. Pat. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for coming back. So why don't you tell everybody, just refresh, like what your background is, what got you to here, and then we'll talk about what's happening with your new project.
Well, my background is, I'm a chiropractor by first training, and then I have other additional trainings in lifestyle medicine, rehabilitation, nutrition and functional medicine, which covers is the bigger umbrella for the ecosystem of what I do, along with the lifestyle medicine that parlays into that really well. I've been doing this for over 38 years. And it's just a passion of mine to see people do well and thrive. Because so many times we get stuck and they don't, the next step is like, do I go this way? And you got you're asking the scarecrow like in the Wizard of Oz and going like that, and going in whatever direction your heart desires at the moment. And sometimes it leads us down a path that is not to our best benefit.
Yeah. So remind us the title of your book, because I know we talked about it last time, but for people who don't remember or maybe didn't see that episode. So the title of the book is
Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired?
Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? I've got at least 2 of those every day. And they fluctuate,
At least the one fluctuates up and down. Yeah.
But no, I mean, and especially given that we are just coming out of COVID, we still don't know if we're coming out of COVID. We're just coming out of COVID, and people, sort of sat in that year of stagnation. Maybe they weren't working. You couldn't go to the gym. You couldn't, so I think people really started to look at their self-care and look at their health. And I know you said you just recently made some changes to the book. So why don't you tell us like kind of what the book covers and what's new and exciting in it? And
well, I have, I changed the format of the back of the book so that when someone reads it, it will make sense to them. It asks you questions like, do you qualify to even get this book? Like, why spend the money? You might know that somebody else needs it, and you certainly can buy it for them. And I hope that you do, because the goal is to thrive, not to suffer or struggle, but there's questions that to be asked. There's also, I get asked a lot of times because I was retired for about 10 plus years. And people ask me like, well, what made you go back to work? I mean, like, if you didn't have to, why did you even do it? And, and then, there's Tom O'Brien, who's a chiropractor and also a functional medicine doctor, who sheds some lights and also paraphrases words that I use in the book about, like identifying that knowledge is powerful. It's not just power, it's powerful, but you got to know what to do with it. And so this book gives you an opportunity to do that, because it's a workbook, guidebook, and an advocating tool to get you to your next level. Whether, it doesn't matter. I always say mothers and fathers are influencers and leaders, and they're executives in their own houses. So we have, it's a broad span, and it's really, someone's like, oh my God, it really is for everybody, and I said, because it's hard to niche it down because there's just so many sick people.
right. Yeah. And for so many different reasons, right? So Jason, you were about to say something.
Well, I was going to say, because I'm curious. I wanted to jump a little bit more into little thing that you said there about, here you are, you're retired. Why go back? Right. I mean, there's so many people that are like, screw it. I'm retired. I'm done. I'm going to Florida. I'm going to the mountains, whatever. I'm just going to live out my life. And so I'm always curious, what was it behind it that kind of drove you to come out of retirement, write the book, speak, do the things that you're doing today? Because like you said, you didn't have to. So why?
Well, one of the things is when I sold my practice on Cape Cod, I always wanted to live in a big city. And I kind of did that when I first was a chiropractor, and I first went to go work for a chiropractor in Cambridge, Massachusetts. But that was only like 8 months. And then my husband and I bought a practice that was on Cape Cod. And then I was on Cape Cod for 10 years. And I kept on going to the city. Anytime I had time off, I went to the city. And I wanted to go live there. And so after I sold my practice, I relocated into downtown Boston, into the financial district. And, and so I would just see people. I was so burnt out when I sold my practice. I never told anybody what I did.
Yeah.
I just dressed up, somebody, every once in a while, somebody at the gym who saw me would say, wow, you clean up really well. I said, well, you see me at 5:30 in the morning. I mean, seriously. And so, so I had those experiences. I started walking, I walked every day a minimum of 2 miles. So from where I lived at to the Back Bay in Boston, it was a 2-mile walk one way. So it's like a good 4 miles every day. I was in really good shape. I said hello to every homeless person in Boston because I thought, like, God, if I'm ever walking by here in this evening, and if these guys recognize me and somebody's doing something, like there's some suspicious behavior, they'll say like, hey, Dr. Pat, how you doing? And I used to get that all the time. And so it's interesting. So I used to go to this area just on the other side of where I live, in this place called Post Office Square. And I would observe people. And, and I would look at them and it's like, God, these people are sick. I mean, they were gray tone, they're pasty white, they weren't smiling. There's like, nobody home. We've all seen people who are like, like nobody home kind of feel. It's like, hey, hello there, and so I would go up to people and ask them, how they were doing. I said, you seem sad to me. Or you seem like, like, gosh, you're one of the few people in this whole Post Office Square that has so much energy. Where did you get it? What do you do? And so I would just have these kind of, interim conversations. Nobody asked me the whole time I lived there what I did, unless I told them.
Yeah.
And so that I thought was always interesting, and so on this mention, when I'm going around looking at facial observations and having this conversation and realizing that people were sick and they didn't know it, I also read a study from the CDC. It was dated in 2010. And so in that study, it showed that 212 suspected dangerous chemicals, every American that was in that study, and they always did huge studies, tested positive for those 212 dangerous chemicals. I went, holy cow, all these people are sick. They don't know it. They're getting toxic from the foods that they're eating, their lifestyle, and especially their environment. That's when you started seeing chemtrails like up in the clear blue sky, or that you really noticed them before when you're looking up. So, the other thing that scared me reading around that time is that they thought by 2030, 50% of the population was going to have some chronic illness or disease. So it all kind of like the people look on these people's faces. They were highly stressed out. Most of them are in the financial district, and they're creatures of habit because they walk by exactly at the same time every day. So when I would see them, they would like, hey, how you doing? And they would smile. At least they would smile sometimes. And other times it's like, hey, how you doing? And keep on moving. But, the thing that related to me, I'm going like, gosh, you know what? I said, this has got to stop, and I'm going to make it my mission to help people, stop this progression, this insane progression of not knowing when you're sick, not knowing when you're tired, or not even knowing if you're fat, because we have this now, this new image of that. Right. And so, I go, it's got to stop. So I started looking for ways to write a book. And I went to look at when I wrote my first book, I just wrote it and I wanted to get it out there. This time it's a little bit more organized, and, and it qualifies people whether or not that you need to take, this book is good for you also. So, for me, the day that I decided that this is stopping here and now is when I started doing research for the book, and also start talking a little bit different, start pivoting. So when I told people I was a doctor who knew me for like, 5 years or something like that, they went, really? I never knew that. And I said, well, it's because I didn't tell you. And so that was the impetus that got me from point A to point C. And I know that there's answers because I was living it. And when I tell people I was doing detoxifications every 4 months, and not in like a big detoxification, because I don't believe you purge your organ system. What you do is you tonify that organ. You see what the value is, because that's what the purpose of the book is. That guide part of the book or workbook is you see what those values are. So you can say like, where should I start that health journey?
Yeah. Well, and what I love about what you just said is so many people are just ignorant of their bodies, right? We don't even stop and ask questions. And I use this analysis all the time. You know, you get your rental car and you walk around with a piece of paper and you're going to write down every ding because you're not getting charged for that. But we don't pay attention to our own body. So we treat the Hertz rental car with more respect and care and observation than we do ourselves. And I can't tell you how many people, when I was doing more massage, they'd walk in and I'd say, "How you doing?" They're like, I don't know, fine. "Well, are you having any aches and pains?" "Yeah, probably. I don't know." And they'd say, "My neck hurts," and they'd point here. Or they'd say, "My shoulder hurts," and they'd point down. And I'm like, that's not, you don't even know what. Someone told me their Altoid was tight and that I should rub that. Someone told me their rotating cup hurt them. So, I mean, it's like we don't have a working knowledge of our own bodies. And if we don't have that knowledge and that education about ourselves, if we don't look at ourselves at least as closely as we look at our rental car, then you're right. We don't even know we're fat, sick, and tired. We just assume, oh, I'm over 40. That's what I'm supposed to feel like. No, that is not what health is. And so I see, as people get older, they go to their doctor. They're like, well, you're 50 now. You're going to feel that way. That's bullshit. That you don't have to make it that way, but we have to get curious about our own bodies, about our own systems, about our own organs. And I love that you wrote this book.
I totally agree with you. I mean, even taking it one step beyond the rental car thing, people, when they have businesses, do not wait till they're in crisis to do something about it. And so and you talk about like having that level of respect or level of knowledge, like, well, I don't know about it. Well, if you have a sign and symptom and you have it for more than 48 hours to 72 hours, I would certainly make mention of it and I would investigate it.
Yeah.
And so that's because you say that you've got X, Y, and Z doesn't mean you have X, Y, and Z, because you can have an allergic reaction to food 8 days later.
Yeah.
And you would never tie it into the food that you're eating.
Right.
Or like, how did I prepare the food? Where did I buy that food? Where's that food source? Where are my thoughts source? Because I have this, one of the things I focus on is the mindset, and I focus on positive mental attitude. And if you have the positive mental attitude and the positive mindset, and you couple that with the wellness initiatives that I speak to in the book regarding like the 5 pillars of health, and what health really is, which is not the absence of disease or infirmities, then you can go, I can be successful at anything. Forget about just health. How about physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially? How about that? How about at home? How about at work? Why is it only one place? Because people tell me like, oh, I feel really good when I'm out. And I said, well, who's at home?
Right.
What do we got to work on there? And let's get the mindset straight. Let's fix that first. And then the other things will have a tendency to fall into place.
Yeah.
Because if you have things that are ruminating and the thoughts, which can undo anything that you do to get rid of toxins in your environment or get rid of the trauma in your environment, which they both relate to inflammation in the body, then you can have better results. Who doesn't want that? And it just takes a little bit of like, what is it that I have going in front of me? What do I have in my box of tools that I can use to go forth from today and then tomorrow, and then keep on building on that tool? Does that mean like walking 2 houses down? If you're really heavy, you can't walk very far. Great. Then you are successful. You should reward yourself for success every day that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the study before about 212 dangerous toxins or chemicals that are in our body.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's like, I kind of was aware that obviously there's stuff that ends up in our bodies with all the processed food, with the, everything else that's around that we don't actually realize, but had no idea that probably all of us have that kind of stuff in our body. And I know you mentioned kind of detoxing, that you do this every 4 months yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are there certain things, again, just because you've got a lot of information in your book, so go out and buy your book, right?
For sure.
But what are some things that people can start thinking about, or at least get curious about, to see if it's something for them? Because I know, last night my wife came home and she was talking about something else that some friends of ours are taking, and I looked it up, and it's kind of a detoxifying stuff. But there's so much noise out there now too, when it comes to detox. You hear a lot of people using that term that have built, supplement companies and other things like that. But are there some simple things that we can do you know, to try to start or at least get curious and do more
Sure.
research on too?
One of the biggest things to do is to hydrate, and
Mm.
when you hydrate, you want to stay away from water that's in plastic, because plastics, especially if the temperature has been extreme or it's sitting in a gas station, and in front of high temperatures, going back or forth, you don't want to drink that water because you're drinking plastic. But you need it for the 5 pillars of health. So going back to the definition of what health is, so people have a better idea, in Webster's dictionary, it says it's 100% function of your organ systems, but you don't know the 100% function of your organ systems. And the WHO, like when I always say when WHO was telling the truth, like back in the 40s and going into 86 when they had to adjust the definition, but their basic definition is, not the you're just because it defines health as not merely the absence of disease or infirmities. So the idea is that, we have these little things, these little voices that, keep on, saying things to us like, pay attention, pay attention. I mean, I didn't have floaters when I was 38, and I didn't have floaters when I was 52. But about a year ago, I started having floaters.
You mean in your eyes?
In your eyes. And
to clarify for the people who don't know what that is.
Okay, thank you.
That's what that is. Okay.
Yeah, and
the little float. Yeah, you look and you're like, what is that going by? Yeah, those are floaters.
So in Chinese medicine, clear ones indicate liver and black ones indicate kidney. So when I would ask somebody intake information on that would give me the clue, like maybe the kidney meridian is not firing like it's supposed to, and what does the kidney meridian, tie into? And so when I'm looking at people who want to do a detoxification, I'm going, if your detoxification makes you purge toxins out of your system, nobody should ever do that. It's not a good thing to do for your organ system, especially for your liver, because people want to tonify what the liver does. It doesn't want to purge the liver. You never do that. And so, when the detoxifications that I do with people are always about like, can your gut handle it? Because if your gut can't handle the toxins going back into it, so you can eliminate them out of your body, then you've got to fix the gut first. Yeah. So a lot of them just say, hey, go do this detox, but it doesn't take into account the quality and the function of your organ system of the gut. So if you're looking at the gut, it's got to be working, because what happens is when you eat, and if there's damage along the gut lining, then food or other elements get absorbed into the blood system. They have to go to the liver in order to be processed. And the liver, if it starts to get overwhelmed, stores those toxins in blood, brain, bone, and fat, no matter what's going on anyplace else. And so you have to have a way and a venue to get those heavy metal toxins, because you are right, Jason, everybody in this country has heavy metal in their body, everybody.
Yeah. Well, and I remember when I was learning to what you're saying, and I remember this illustration when I was learning about this, when I was doing the functional integrative medicine stuff down in Los Angeles. They said, imagine that you let everybody on the 405, but close all the exits. You've got to make sure the exits are open first before you put everyone onto the 405. And I remember that image of, oh my God, if you do start to do this massive detox and you have no place for those toxins to go, you're flooding yourself. So yeah, it was just, that was the reminder image that popped back in my head. So
that's especially out in California. If you've ever been on the 405, which I've been, and I think I sat there and played tic-tac-toe with the person next to me. And so it's like, hey, do you know how to play tic-tac-toe? True story. And I still won because I got to go first. Anyway, that's the key in tic-tac-toe. But the thing about people is that they don't, it's just like when you're looking at like, what should I do? A really good vibe to do is go buy organic food. And pay the price, because you either pay now or you pay later. The average cost that somebody spends out of pocket for diabetes is something like $19,000 to $25,000. I'd rather use that $25,000 or that $19,000 on something that I like to do, not that I have to do. And so I think that that's an important point to make in regards to that. And when looking at when you're looking at around what else can I do? Look at your cleaning fluids and the fertilizers that you use. I saw a guy spraying his yard in Florida when I went to do clinical rounds at National Chiropractic College in Pinellas, I think it's called. And I asked him, I said, what's that? He goes, Roundup.
Mm.
And I said to him, well, it's, it's toxic, it's carcinogenic. And he
Yep.
said, only if you breathe it. And I said, no, that's funny, right? It says, I looked at him, I said, you notice you don't have a mask on, number one. And even if you did have a mask, those molecules are so small, they would go through the mask. This is before COVID. And then these two little girls ran out the front door barefoot. And I said, so you're spraying it on the lawn.
Yep.
I go, they're running across the lawn, and 65% of what you put on your skin gets absorbed into your body. I said, you're giving those little girls, I said, a high dose of, a Roundup, because you want to get rid of your weeds. You can use Dawn and you can use vinegar, to get rid of those things and not have any, side effect. I go, look at the stream across the street.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling my dog. My dog was still alive then. I'm pulling my dog across the street. Said, "You cannot pee on that guy's lawn."
Yeah, And what's so interesting is we now have this knowledge. Mm-hmm. So when I was a kid, I grew up in the 70s. We had ChemLawn come by. It came back on a big truck, and once the first neighbor did, then all the neighbors did, and every other Tuesday they'd come by and they'd spray, and they put these little flags that said, "Don't play in the yard." And even as a kid, I remember thinking, what the heck did you just spray there that I'm not allowed to walk on my lawn for the next week? We didn't have they might have had the knowledge, but we as a global society didn't have the knowledge of the detriment of those types of chemicals. Now we do. And the profit for Monsanto, can't stand them. The profit is so high that they're putting money above health, and stuff like that drives me crazy. And I'm now starting to see the have you been damaged by Roundup kind of things come on the TV. And that's when you go, okay, now people are getting wise to it. I don't want to have to litigate everything, but we're starting to get wise to, maybe we don't want to spray that shit all over our food. Well, I mean, it seems common sense to me.
But likewise, you got to take a look at, other things that they put out for medications. Like when you see a TV, where they're talking about Cymbalta, and or anything else, or even vaccines, for instance, it's just like there's repercussions from those things that have they don't know them right away.
Right.
I mean, and if you look even into the Pfizer report on their vaccine, it's just like the side effects and the deaths that related to it, they kind of masked those numbers when they were happening, and they did not keep an accurate account. So, it's just like, wow, it's just like, you don't have my best interest at heart. I would never give you a loaded gun. Oh, take this pill. It's like, well, what does it do? What are the side effects, and what are the long-term side effects? If they can't tell you the long-term side effects, why would you take it?
Yeah.
And I go, unless you were really, really desperate, but then you'd have to parlay in what lifestyle changes and solutions, not only solutions, but solutions can I do in order to go from point A to point C? Like, what are my possibilities? And then let me make an educated decision about how I want to go forward, whether I go, is that a good thing for me, or is that a bad thing for me?
Yeah. And you're right. It's about asking those questions. And it is about that risk versus reward. And I've had clients that have been on she had migraines. They put her on 2 or 3 different seizure medications that she was having horrible side effects from, and it wasn't helping the headaches. And I said, girl, I am not qualified to tell you to take or not take a prescription. I said, but I can advise you to talk to your doctor about this. And if you're taking these meds that have horrible side effects and it's not solving the problem, why would you keep taking that? And she didn't have a good answer. And she finally went to her doctor and took care of it. But in the last couple of minutes, what are some things just we can do every day? You said hydrate. What are some other things we can do just on a daily basis to start make these changes towards better health?
Well, you can hydrate, and how you hydrate is 50% of your body weight in ounces. So if I weigh 150 pounds, which I do, then I drink minimum of 75 ounces a day.
Yep.
And then if I get to a point where I need to have I can't drink another ounce of water because I can't stand the taste of it, then I will put an essential oil that's therapeutic grade of lemon, lime, usually maybe some grapefruit. The other thing you can do is you can move every day. And so, my 5 pillars of health, the first is nutrition, second is exercise. So I go, you don't like to exercise? Well, just go out and walk. 15-minute walk can do a lot of things for mentally, physically, spiritually, socially. Get out of behind the computer and all that electricity. The third thing is sleep. So if you honor your sleep, and because sleep is where you restore, you revitalize, and you repair, you've got to shut electronic stuff off way beforehand, a good hour before you go to sleep. and that includes the TV, maybe. So like maybe like read or take a hot bath, something like that in order to get forward. And that positive mental attitude, Jim Rohn was an incredible man. And so if you want to change your mindset, you want to change the direction that your life is going in, you got to start your day off on a good positive thought, and you should end it on a good positive thought. Because we didn't talk about the 3 brains, but that first brain, that primitive brain, is going to try to derail you every time. And the good part about that is only when you say, put your foot on the brake so you don't hit the car in front of you. That's what that brain tells you to do.
Yeah.
And you want to tie in better emotions. So that's why you do the positive mental attitude with the positive mindset. I can listen to someone like Jim Rohn, start your day off with a positive thought and end your day with a positive thought, because then your brain goes to sleep, and is able to do all those things. And you have the ability to have peace of mind, and peace of mind is priceless. And the last thing, on the 5th pillar of health is structure, function, proper posture. You have to have water, that hydration for every one of these pillars so far, but you want to make sure that you're structurally sound. Because they found that even having a piece of hair on a nerve interferes with the function of that nerve functioning at 100%. So, and you don't know that necessarily at first, but pain is an indicator. It's not a lifestyle. So if you're thinking pain, like I'm going to be in pain for the rest of my life, that's not a lifestyle change that I vote for. And there's things that you can do to be more structurally sound. There's Egoscue method, there's massage, there's a lot of things out there that can help support you do that. When you put those pieces of the puzzle together, you know where to start your health journey, and you have the nuts and bolts that I can work with and help you have shortcuts so that you can have the breakthroughs and have them faster, better, and more simpler, so you get the results that you want in the life that you want to lead. Who doesn't want their dream day? You got to know what your dream day is. You got to know your numbers.
Yeah. Jason, this was all incredible. That's a lot of info. I hope everyone's going to have to listen to this one 2 or 3 times. Jason, any final thoughts before we give websites, etc.?
It's good stuff. And again, that's why thank you for, being with us, for sharing what you're sharing, because like you said, I thought I knew a lot of this stuff, but again, even today, I'm like, shit, I need to get out for my walk more, right? Because there's like you said, there's a lot of these simple things, and we can't go bubble ourselves off. There's certain things that we can do, that some of the things that you talked about, but the important thing is that we're just doing something and we're heading in that direction. And it's really simple to just drink more water, right? At least to begin with. And I think that's again, one thing that I'm sure most people don't hydrate enough.
Right. Most of the injuries I ever saw in my business, because I did a lot of elite athletes, runners, like marathon runners, and that most of those guys, when they injure themselves, is all because of a dehydration.
Yeah, because the muscle fibers aren't in the nerves and the nutrients and all that good stuff. Oh, man.
The list is long.
The list is long. Cool. Well, Dr. Pat, why don't you tell everybody how they can reach you and get a hold of your book and your services and all that great stuff?
So, a good way to get a hold of me is on LinkedIn, is where I have a more complete profile. My website is being updated, and there's been a couple glitches, so we're fixing those. So if you go there, it's healthteamnetwork.com. On the front page, when you drop down, there'll be a microphone. You can click on it. You can ask me a question. It comes right to my desktop, and I can answer you back in that regard. LinkedIn's a good source, Dr. Pat Boulogne. I have a Facebook page, and I have an Instagram account. But I focus primarily on LinkedIn because what I do is I help executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs have the healthiest health they possibly can with superior wellness initiatives and mindset strategies. So that's where I start at. You can always find me there. You can always reach out. I'm from the Midwest. Everyone's welcome in my home.
Yay. I love it. We'll reach out to Dr. Pat, and we'll put all that in the lower third so people can find you. So happy to.
In the book, the book is on Amazon. Make sure you buy the new cover that has the red letters. They're having a problem keeping the right one up there, and so so that's the one to buy.
Perfect.
It's like what I offer as an offering today. Get the book. You have a good 45 minutes with me to talk about what your scores were and what they mean and moving forward. So I love it. So reach out, get the book, spend 45 minutes with Dr. Pat, getting those questions in. I love it. That's fabulous. Thank you for doing that. Hey, everybody, you got a lot of stuff to think about and a lot of things to put on your to-do list. So go drink more water,
actually listen to your body, ask your body questions. And I'm Kathy Gruber. I can be reached at kathygruber.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. And we'll catch you on the next Fire and Earth podcast. Have a great week.
Yes.
See ya.